This South Wayne Coach Conversation brought to you by Dave's Collision Shop in Ossian, Becker Hardware in Ossian, and Fidelity Bank and Trust in Ossian and Calmar. We're with South Wayne boys basketball coach Blake Moen. And Coach, we're still having conversations. That means you guys are still playing basketball. A district final win over Edco on Tuesday night down at Elkader. You're down 8 going into the fourth quarter. How'd you get it done?
Yeah, no, thanks, Darren. A lot of similarities, I think, from the standpoint of just our will and our fight and our desire, even as the game went along. I think the Wapsie Valley win was a great confidence boost for us because with the Edco game, then we were able to, have that confidence that, hey, we've been in this spot before. We've been down before. We just need to kind of hang around, keep it close, and just try to go on that run. I think a huge impact for us was we were able to defensively extend our pressure a little bit more as the game went along. That led to a lot of steals and then transition layups. Carson Wendhold, I got to give him a lot of credit. He had a great game on the other night and was able to cause a lot of havoc on defense to get steals and transition points that were huge in what we needed in particular. He was our leading scorer that night, and other guys that really stepped up. Kale Kaboshik didn't score maybe as many points as he would want, but he caused a lot of good pressure on defense to force Edco into some tough shots that slowed their scoring down, that allowed us to get transition points on the other end. And in the half court, then we had some grinding points. Jacob Harold on some drives. Trey Craner, Colin Wilchin coming through some big shots as well. Keegan Streeter coming through. And the nice thing with our scoring, Darren, is that it was pretty even that night. Carson was our leading scorer, but we had very even scoring, and that was very promising to see that we weren't relying heavy on just one guy. It was a complete team effort on offense and defense as well to get the win.
So in other words, it's a complete team victory, fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. In the first quarter, we had the lead for most of the first quarter. It was, I should say it was back and forth, and then we had the lead towards the end, but they hit a shot to take the lead. And from there on to the fourth, we were down. We were down 6 points, 7 points, 8 points. And then, we cut it to 6, but then it would go back to 8. One time in the third quarter, it was 10. But, one big thing that happened for us was towards the end of the third quarter, Jake Harold hit a big shot towards the end of the buzzer of the third that cut the lead from 10 points to 8. And I think that was huge for us for not only momentum's sake, but also just to look up at the scoreboard and say, hey, we're only down 8. We're right in there. We just need to go on a run and get some stops. And that really helped us as well. So a big shot by him. But it was team effort on defense to cause that pressure that I talked about earlier, and the scoring it distributed very evenly as well. And just show the guys' belief and the will in each other as the game went along.
And you mentioned you were down going into that fourth quarter. How key was it to keep the game within reach, even though you were down in that third quarter? Because an 8-point deficit is one thing, a 20-point deficit is another.
Yeah, and that's actually something we even talked about even at halftime. I said, the big thing that I told him at halftime is that, we're down at the point in time, we were down at 8 or so. And I said, we don't have to get it all in one shot. We just have to kind of stay within reach. And we've shown, if we can get to the fourth quarter and if we're down, but within reach, we feel like that we can do some things on defense and hit some shots on offense. And that's kind of what our message was to them at half. And even after the third quarter, scoring wise, we were in the same spot, but that I talked about that shot with Jay gave us a little momentum. And we had just said that if we can just keep it close and just go on a run here, it's only going to take 1 or 2 buckets and then we're right back in it. So the big message to our guys was don't try to get all at once, just peck away at it here in the fourth quarter. And ultimately we came on top, and I was proud of them for it.
And we've talked all season about the experience that you have on your team. Does that experience show in situations like that where poise is necessary and you got to have everybody stick together, and you got those glue guys out on the floor to make sure that, hey, you know what, we'll be all right if we do what we need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one thing I talked to with someone as well was, just if you look, like a lot of our guys, we have 3 seniors that start. 2 of those guys, in Jake and Colin, have been playing varsity for 4 years. Kale has been playing varsity for 3 years. Trey, another starter for us, of course, has been playing varsity for 3 years. And then we have, our other starter, and kind of our 6th guy off the bench, and Keegan Streeter and Carson Wenhold are sophomores, but they've been playing a lot of varsity all season. And so, I think especially with those seniors and Trey, our junior, those guys have been in a lot of situations, through their time at playing varsity basketball that, even when we're down, we know that in 1 or 2 shots, 1 or 2 defensive possessions, the game can get swung really fast. And being the fact that we have that experience, we have those guys that have been in those situations before, it helps because Coach Taylor and myself, we talked to the guys a lot about it, but it's really nice when we have the players that have been in those experiences and can communicate those things to our younger players as well.
And you mentioned the experience on the basketball floor. A lot of those kids you're mentioning, a big part of other teams like football, cross country, state baseball 2 years in a row. A lot of these kids have gotten it done in track as well. They're no strangers to the big stage, are they?
No, and it's a big reason why I know I just love our guys that are in 3 sports, 4 sports, and just really putting themselves in a lot of situations year in and year out in athletics to compete and be put in situations regardless of the sport, because it helps every sport out. You said it, Darren. Guys that play football in the state playoffs, the state tournament runs in baseball, cross country. Everyone in track and field, of course, as you mentioned, and it really puts those guys in situations to compete at the battle. And I think that regardless of the sport, that really helps you, whether it's on the basketball floor, the track, whatever it is. It's huge.
What have you been able to figure out to this point about Gladbrook Rhinebeck, your sub-state opponent coming up on Saturday night?
Yeah, Gladbrook Rhinebeck has had a really fine season, Darren. They've had a really good year and have played some similar opponents as us as well, and have come out on the winning end on some, the losing end on one. In looking at them as a whole, we've played similar teams like Sumner Fredericksburg, and Hudson and whatnot, West Central. And they have a good core group of guys for them. William Kilburus is one of their point guard, and he's a really fine player. We've been able to watch some film, we've been able to see some things, and he's a really good player. And there's a reason he has the averages per game that he does, in scoring, in rebounding, and assists. He really is a good kind of glue guy for them, and they've got some great shooters around him as well. That really can hit some shots, and Dylan Riffey and Caleb Eggesdale are 2 really fine shooters, 3-point shooters for them as well. So they've got some deep threats, and then they've got an inside threat as well in Tristan Sanford Anders, who's a good post player, good threat for them down low as well. And they've won a lot of games, and at this point, they've only lost to 2 teams this year in Cresco and South Hardin. That's their only losses on the year. And so they've won a lot of games for a reason. They have been able to battle against games. They've played in a lot of close games as well. And they traditionally are a program that's making playoff runs. They're at the state tournament, other sports too. They're historically a very, very good athletics school as well. And so their guys, are will be prepped and ready to go. And they probably have seen basketball runs at Gladbrook Rhinebeck and everything else through the years of them growing up. So we're going to have our hands full, Darren. We're going to have to be ready to close out on their shooters. We're going to have to be ready to handle a little bit of pressure defense that they do on the pressing side of things. But then they also appears they run, some zone defense. So we're going to have to be ready to pass really well and handle their pressure there and try to slow down their top scorer in Kilburus and some of their shooters around them. But once again, Darren, at this point in the year, there's a reason, they're here. They're a really good team. They've had a great season. We're going to have to be ready to go to play our best game to beat them on Saturday.
And I know you're focused on getting ready for that game in practice and making your kids as ready as they can be for that sub-state game. But this is a run that South Winn boys basketball hasn't had in quite some time. Do you ever kind of sit back and say, hey, you know what, let's soak this all in and enjoy this run?
Yeah, absolutely, Darren. I think, like you said, there's definitely a mix of it, right? We definitely want to be focused and get ready for Saturday, but we also, as coaches and players, and I think the community and school in general, it's so fun to be able to take a step back and say, hey, this is pretty cool. This is a great run that our guys are putting us through right now. It's just overwhelming the community support that we've gotten. We'll get done with the game and. I know Coach Derek Taylor, our assistant, played and graduated from South Winn. He, I believe, played on one of, maybe not the last, but one of the last teams that have made to some state. And I know that he has said that all of his high school buddies will, message him after games that they're all fired up and they can't wait for Saturday's game. And same thing with myself, friends that are reaching out. And I know that it's the same thing for our guys and community members, and just the support that we've got is so fun. So you're right, Darren. It's a combination of getting ready for Saturday, but it's also just fun to take a step back and really enjoy the moment and tell our guys to enjoy it as well. Because, I told someone too, that the atmosphere the other night against Edco was just phenomenal. And it was kind of why, we told the guys, it was kind of why you hope to be able to play in those big games where it's a packed gym. There's a game on the line. You're playing the playoffs, and it was a great game, and we played against a great team. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what we want to be in at the end of the year. And so to enjoy that moment and going into Saturday too, that's kind of our same message as well. Is just enjoy it, fellas, because this is a fun spot to be in, and they are the ones that have put us in here, and it's fun to be a part of it.
All right, Coach. Hopefully, South Winn boys basketball can make it to Des Moines for the first time in 34 years, about 8:30 and 9 o'clock come Saturday night. It's certainly been a great postseason run, and hopefully it's even greater after Saturday night. We wish you best of luck.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. And as always, thank you very much for your coverage. We appreciate it.
This South Winn Coach Conversation brought to you by Fidelity Bank and Trust in Ossian, Dave's Collision Shop in Ossian, and Becker Hardware in Ossian.